Hi there, I'm Dr. Karen Janes. I'm a psychologist and energy healer in the UK, and welcome to the Life Made Easier podcast, where you will find ancient wisdom with a modern approach. In each episode, we're going to be sharing tips and tricks from the world of energy healing to help you make your life easier in simple and practical ways.
I'm Dr. Tiffany Hunter. I'm an energy healer in the United States in the beautiful sunshine state of Florida. Today's episode actually has a sibling. The first part that we did was how to understand what it means to be out of balance from a technical point of view. What's actually happening in the body and the energy and the mind that makes us feel what we define as being off or being off balance or a little wackadoodle, so to speak. So you might find this episode much more helpful if you go back and listen to that one first. Listen or watch that one first. But this episode, we're gonna take that information, we're gonna put it into practice, and we're gonna start talking about, well, I've noticed that I am off balance. Now, what the heck do I do about it so that I can feel better as quickly as possible?
Yeah, so even though we would really love you to go and listen to that episode, just in case you're not, or it was a while since you listened to it, we thought we would just do a little quick recap of how that one went. So in a lot of what we talk about, we find it helpful to think about humans as being made up of approximately three parts. And so we all have a mind, we all have a body, we all have an energy system. And when these parts are not balanced within themselves or between each other, we can feel off balance. So there's many ways we can feel off balance, and it can affect any part of us. That's commonly going to show up as a physical or emotional or mental symptom, because although causes of being out of balance can be energetic, the symptoms are usually experienced in a physical or mental way. And we'll kind of be talking a little bit more about that again as we give you some ideas about what you can do about it. So an really important takeaway from all of this as well is accepting that because you're a human being, because of the world we live in, that you will be off balance some of the time. You will have that I got out of the wrong side of bed kind of feeling, and that's okay. And the best job you can do of not judging yourself for that, not being critical of yourself for that, and just expecting that it will happen sometimes more than others. And I think the more accepting we can be of that, the more likely we are to be able to catch it quicker, to identify it, and then to use one of our tools, hopefully an increasingly growing toolbox, to help us deal with that. And so things like, if we're not sleeping well, if we're feeling anxious, if we don't feel right, if we find ourselves reacting to things disproportionately, when you have a go at your partner because they left a spoon somewhere and you can feel yourself full of rage because of it, and then you're like, no, it's not the spoon. Those are all really good signs that you might be feeling a little bit off balance. Yeah, so we want to talk to you a little bit about what on earth can we do about these things. And I think the other part is that don't worry if we talk about these three parts of ourselves, mind, body, energy, or mind, physical, and an energy system. Sometimes a good place to start is just do something, try something. So the tips and ideas we're going to give you are take them as in no particular order, and some will feel more useful to you and some less so. So yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to do that in today's podcast.
Yeah, and just a word about how to approach these things that we're talking about. Karen and I are very aware that, we just talked about having how there's three parts of us. We're very aware that we are engaging with you through your mind, but we're talking and we're putting our focus on the energy anatomy. And we're trying to impart information that helps you change the energy anatomy. But the only access that we have that you're giving us is through your mind. And because you're not individually in front of us, we can't look at what you're doing. We can't feel the energy changing in your body as we're doing it and then give you hints and feedback to be able to say, no, 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 not there, a little to the right, a little to the left. We can't do any of that. And this is an immense frustration for us. But we're going to do our best. And the best way to maximize that is to consistently bring you back to feeling your body. Because if you can do these things and not have it just be a thought pattern, but actually an experience inside your body, a kind of visceral experience, then what you've done is you've taken the information we're giving you through your mind, connected it to your body, and allowed your energy to be incorporated in that. Um, Being able to change your energy with your mind, the mind doesn't make any changes on the energy, but the mind can give language to the energy to change, right? It can have language. And I don't know how many of you have ever seen the movie Kill Bill, but there's this scene in the movie where this woman has been in a coma for many, many years, and she comes out and she drags herself very dramatically to the back of a truck, and she's trying to get her body to function for the first time, and she's trying to wiggle her toe, and she's using her mind, and she's been saying to her toe, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle the toe. And what she's doing is she's trying to reestablish that connection that she first figured out when she was an infant, trying to get her thumb into her mouth in the correct place, right? She's trying to get that connection between her mind being the steering wheel for getting her body to do what she wants it to do. And that's kind of what we're trying to reproduce for you here is we're talking to you through your mind, we're asking your mind to do things, but in order to get that mind connection to the energy, we need to get your body involved. So it can't just be a visualization, it has to be a feeling as well.
I love that example you gave there, because I think it can be. I've actually talked to people before who've been like, "Well, I've been trying meditation, or I've been trying, I don't know, journaling, and then I realize I'm just going through the motions. It's just a mental activity that I'm doing." So we really do need to try and engage more of ourselves. So, and I, do you know, I hadn't thought about this before, but I think one thing that's so useful with any of the things we suggest or any other things you do generally, because other things might come to mind listening to us talk to help you feel more in balance, is to slow down with it. I think we're often in such a rush that we, right, I've ticked that box, I've done the thing, I don't feel any different. Okay, what do but just to take a bit of time to do that and to remember that you have a number of senses. And some of us will be more visually oriented, some of us will be more focused on sound. We're all different. So whenever you're trying any kind of many of the things that we're going to go on to talk about in just a moment, I think really try and engage all your senses. So, even when we're like, I think a meditation practice is probably a good example of this. You might be listening to a meditation and the person says, imagine you're by the ocean. And for some people, it will be really easy to conjure a picture of an ocean in their head. For other people, having a picture of that would be really difficult, but they might find it easier to imagine the sound, and for others to what does it smell like. So I'm going to breathe in and take a bit of time with that and really think about what does it smell like to be by the, I'm saying ocean, I should say sea, because that's really the English version of that, when you're by the sea. So and the other thing that but it's really the feeling part, that the mind is the, I don't even know what to call it. What would you call that? Like the driver, but the
Mm,
you have to engage the engine, which is
yeah.
the body, and in really feel into that as much as you can. And another thing about any technique I think you try is to, again, with the slowing down, really try and take a minute before you do the thing that's supposedly going to help you feel more in balance. And this could be a very physical thing. So, I think I might be out of balance because I'm dehydrated. Take a minute to check in with yourself. Well, what am I feeling right now? Drink the water, and then, there may not be an instant. You might need to wait like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but then check in again. How do I feel now? Because that will help you to get better at identifying being out of balance and what was the the cause of the being out of balance. So that will also help you evaluate better which techniques are useful for me and which are useful for me in which situation.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so there's if any of you, and I assume most of you, have some kind of social media account, you've probably seen a list of things that we're about to talk about. You know, these quick 10 things to feel back in balance. And so we're not going to dwell on them, but it's worth mentioning them right here, as Karen just said, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you've taken a break, making sure you've had enough but not too much exercise, sit in nature, taking a walk, sitting next to a tree, hugging a tree, journaling. These are things that will all make a difference that you probably know about. None of those things are energetic in nature, but they're absolutely worth mentioning. I will tell you one. I will add to something that I think certainly hasn't come up in any of my social media feeds, but when you pay attention to what you're listening to, you're activating the body. When you're using your vision, you're activating the mind. So when you start getting back to the model that we're putting forward, that we're made up of a body, a mind, and energy, and when we're out of balance, it's often because the mind part of us is inflamed. And a really wonderful way to allow that to recede and allow a different part of us, in this case, the body, to come back and blossom so that it can be rebalanced, is just to sit, close your eyes, and listen to what you hear. It's a really nice way to do it.
Even you just describing that makes me feel more relaxed. That's so weird. I'm just like, oh yeah, I can just like listen. That's yeah. Yeah, and I think we talked quite a lot in the sister episode or brother episode, the sibling episode to this one, about how although we do separate things out into these three parts as a way to think about it and understand ourselves a little more easily because our mind likes to compartmentalize things. It is very interconnected, and there are, what even uh, a remedy, if you like, that seems very physical in nature is likely to have an impact on the other parts of you. So it's not good for, if we just take drinking water as an example, it's not good for any parts of your system to be dehydrated. If that goes on for any length of time, that is going to have an impact on all the parts of us. I think the other things I just right before we do get onto the techniques, I think the other things that I would just be really important to say is really trying to approach any techniques you use with as much gentleness, compassion, trying to get rid of the judgment, all of that. You may also find that I think with anything to do with our kind of health or well-being, there are points at which we sometimes need extra help. And there are some healing techniques which specifically can be really useful for bringing us back into better balance. And I'm just going to very, very briefly mention them here. I'm just enough to let you know about them because they're not something that you could do within the scope of a podcast. The first one, which is something that Tiffany and I both practice and teach, is Reiki. And Reiki is a particular vibration of energy healing. And one of the fabulous things about it, if you're not familiar with it, is that you can learn it to use on yourself. So you can go to see a Reiki practitioner to receive the Reiki energy from them, but you can go and do an attunement class and have your energy system adjusted so that you can connect in with this particular vibration of energy and use it for your own well-being. And without going into any more detail about this right now, because I don't want to go too far off the point, one of the things that Reiki really does well for us is it helps us deeply naturally relax, and that really helps our body. It has an impact on our mind, and it helps our energy system, and it helps the part of us that is responsible for our body's capacity to heal itself. So in that sense, it's really great at helping us to naturally come into a better balance. Another thing, but you do need to go to a class for that. Another thing that lots of people find helpful is EFT, emotional freedom technique, or tapping, which involves tapping certain points which connect up with meridian lines, which again, I don't want to go too much into this. They're like energy lines that chi energy runs through in your body that acupuncturists would work with. So that can be, and that is something which you could probably look up some videos on YouTube for very basic, simple protocols to follow to that can help you to feel a bit more balanced. And none of these things will cure all ills, but trying some different things can be a useful way to just help you feel a bit more balanced and help you kind of learn a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about the tapping techniques is you can learn them
Mm.
on YouTube and similar videos. One of the nice things about Reiki is that you can do it with privacy. You can do it in the middle of a crowded room and nobody will know that you're doing it. Unlike having tapping yourself in the middle of the middle of public. I get a lot. I teach kids and teenagers Reiki, and I get a lot of test anxiety kids that come or that have social anxiety, and they're able to do Reiki on themselves in the middle of their peer group without feeling like they're self-conscious, and that's a huge thing. Okay, so I'm going to teach you what Karen and I affectionately call the pendulum technique. And what we're going to suggest is that you listen to me explain it all the way through, and then you pause the podcast and you try it for yourself because or maybe listen to it all the way through and try to follow me. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, back to our previous commentary, that I'm teaching you to do something through your mind that has to go through your body to get to your energy. And the way that I'm doing it simply might not be your pace. And obviously, it's a podcast. We don't want a lot of dead air. That's boring for everybody. So I may go faster than you need for you to really make sure that your body is feeling and is completely connected to what's happening. So I'm hoping to get the information into your brain. And then, I guess, for the sake of having consistent and specific language, I'm trying to get the information into your mind. And when you have it, then you can put it into use. Okay, so a pendulum technique. The first thing to do is to sit down, although you can do this standing up. But if you're sitting down, it will be easier for your first time. And I will also say that this is going to take me however long it takes me, but with practice, you will get faster at it. But for the first time, absolutely take your time. As Karen said, slow yourself down. So when you sit down, whatever position, I don't care if it's cross-legged on the floor or sitting in a comfy chair, close your eyes. So remember, we're closing down the mind and listen. Listen to the sound of my voice. Listen to the sounds in your room and your environment and find out what it is you can hear. And as you do that, allow that transition from the chatty mind that's being activated by what you're looking at into the body through what you're hearing. And as you do that, feel gravity. Gravity is pulling on you all the time. And gravity is very much your friend. Gravity is going to show you where you're resisting. So feeling gravity, allow it to pull your shoulders down your back. Allow it to relax your cheeks. Allow it to relax your eyeballs. Allow gravity to soften your hips and let them widen. And just take this moment feeling gravity, listening to what you can hear, and feeling your body settle. And try to reproduce the feeling for yourself that you're a little bit of a sandbag, right? Everything's kind of coming down, 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 right? Or that you're a little bit of a snow globe and all the swirly snow that's swirling around you is just very gently settling to the bottom of you. And then once you feel like you've got that, I want you to drop a pendulum from the middle of your head down along your spine, down out your bottom, as low as you want to go. If you want to go all the way down to the middle of the planet, I have no problem with that. If you want to go just below your hips, that's not a problem. As long as you're going down outside, down low enough so you're outside of your body. And feel that pendulum's movement, right? It's got a nice heavy weight on the bottom. So if it's hanging from the top of your head down through your body, it's going to have pendulum swing, right? Where is it swinging? Is it swinging in a circle? Is it going back and forth? I'm going to ask you to multitask. I'm going to ask you to stay connected to your sense of gravity, right? That pendulum has a weight on it too, and that should make the gravity easier to feel. And I'm going to ask you to keep your awareness on what you can hear. And just feel that pendulum for a few moments, as long as you need to when you're not having to follow my voice. Now I want you to be aware of where that pendulum connects to your head, to your skull, because I don't want it forward. I want it really, truly in the middle of your head. So if you were an elf and you went to the top of your pointy ears and went up, 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 past your forehead to the very top of your head, to the middle of your skull, that's where your pendulum should start. That's where it should connect and hang from. Not close to your brow, but probably, since we're also front focused, probably closer to the back of the head than you're used to being. So I want you to have a sense of pulling that pendulum connection backwards towards the back of your head, away from your nose and away from your belly button, and see how that changes the movement of it. We're moving away from your eyeballs, away from your nose, away from your belly button, back inside you and down. Continuing to feel gravity, continuing to listen. When you have that backward sense, I want you to do your best to make your pendulum still. Use the gravity, use that heavy weight on it. Make it as heavy as you want to. Down with that sandbag feeling, pulling away from your front towards the back of your head, towards the back of your body, and down. And bring it to a still point. It does not matter if you are successful. Success is not how still you get it. Success is in the doing of it. By doing it, you are bringing yourself back into balance. And just stack that pendulum in the back, towards the back of you, away from the front, and let it be. And just watch it. When your mind, you notice I say when, not if, your mind wanders, you just bring it back to that pendulum and bring it back to a still point. And then you sit there. And when it wanders again, you gently bring the pendulum back and you bring it to a still point. That is what Karen and I call the pendulum technique. Good job. Yay.
That was brilliant. I was only kind of half doing it because I was, wanting to not just disappear somewhere else while I'm supposed to be also participating in this podcast. But it struck me listening to you that there were almost like several parts to that. So even just thinking about gravity helps you to feel a little bit more in your body, which will help you to be a bit more balanced. Exactly what you mentioned earlier about the hearing, just taking a moment to listen to sounds, that in itself is, one small thing. So if you're, I don't know, if you're in the middle of a meeting and you're feeling a bit stressed and a bit kind of like, oh, any one of those things, just thinking gravity is sticking me to this chair, or I can feel the gravity on my feet on the floor. Just even those separate things. And the more you practice these things, as Tiffany said, the faster you'll get. So the easier it is then to just do them quickly when you need to. But that sense of really slowing down to go through them, particularly in the beginning. But equally, I think slowing down generally is something we don't do enough of. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would like to talk you through something that is similar. It's kind of a different way of achieving the same thing.
Let me say one more thing about the pendulum. The first time you do it,
Mm.
you definitely want to do it the way that I said, but with a little bit of practice a lot of my clients tease me for writing a book of all the things you can do when you're going to the toilet. Remember that every time you go to the toilet, you're sitting there if you're a woman or even if you're a man, you're sitting there by yourself for a few moments. You can do a quick pendulum to get through the day. You can do it in the car before you go home to have to manage your family. You can do it sitting at your desk, staring at a computer, because with practice, you'll be able to do it with your eyes open, right? So we did it in a very formalized way. It's actually the first thing Karen and the first thing I teach when I'm teaching a meditation class. It's the beginning of meditation. But remember that it doesn't have to be like that. You can do it quick and nasty, and it will still be really effective.
Yeah, and I think actually what you said is so important and kind of applies to any of the any of the techniques we use. Um, and the one that I'm going to talk you through next is in some ways very similar, but some of why we really wanted to include this one as well is to really speak to the fact that all our minds work differently, and we genuinely need what works for one person may not work so well for someone else. And that's not because anybody's doing anything wrong or the technique isn't good, but just we're all different. We need different things. So, what I wanted to just talk you through now, you can do again, as Tiffany described with the pendulum, that you can do it, really take a bit of time to close your eyes, to ideally be sitting, I think, the first time, but again, it's something you can do standing, and uh, having your spine vertical is a good way to sort of go about this. It will help you to focus on really finding that energetic balance. And it might also be worth me just mentioning that really what we're trying to do when we do any of these kind of techniques is there are sort of core central energy lines that run through the center of our body, and they ideally, as kind of as Tiffany described with the pendulum, are kind of nice and still and straight and running cleanly through the center of the core of our being, and really getting into exactly how those energy lines work and all of that is, kind of would be too much of a deviation for today for sure. But just being aware that there are different parts of our energy system and that these core energy channels that run through our body are things that a part of what can push us out of balance if they're not in a good place. So the pendulum technique, and then what I like to call as the finding 3 points, 3 centers in our body, are both kind of working with those central energy lines. So if you want to take a minute to close your eyes, if that's comfortable, or at the very least, just don't do this if you're driving. Focus your vision downwards on a fixed point so you're not distracted by what you're seeing. Maybe take a breath. Again, tuning into what you can hear. Just give yourself a moment. That will help you. And also giving yourself a moment, very much like Tiffany described, to be aware of the pull of gravity on your body. That really helps us sink downwards. And then for this technique, what we're going to do is find 3 points in the very center of our body. So the first one is in our head. So if you were to borrow Tiffany's description of elf ears, if you had pointy ears, the tip of each ear, if you could draw an imaginary line from the tip of one ear across through the center of your head to the tip of the other, and then you're going to do another line at right angles to that from between the center of your brow through to the back of your head, there will be a point at which those two lines intersect. So I'd like you to just, if you can, as best you can, try and find that point where those two lines intersect, where they cross over. And rest your attention there on that very middle point. That will help you find the middle of your head. So we're down at the level of the top of the ears and back behind our eyes. And then the second point, again, be aware of pacing. You probably want to do this much more slowly. Is if you were to draw a line across from the outside edge of each shoulder, so just as you're starting to go down, you're at the top of your arms, draw a line across, and then from the center of where your collarbones come together through to your back. And those two lines will cross over and meet. So again, finding the place where that line from one shoulder to the other and from the between the collarbones, the top of the sternum through to your back, where they cross over. That's the center of the top of your torso. And then just moving on, we're going to do that once more down by our hips. So if you were to draw a line across from one side to the other, level with your hips. So the kind of, if you you're kind of outside edge of your pelvis really, and then from the just below your belly button through to your spine, and where those 3 points cross. Sorry, those 2 lines cross even. There, we're going to focus on the center of that line, where those 2 lines cross in the middle of your abdomen, in your belly, low down. So we now have 3 points. We have 1 point where the 2 lines in the middle of our head cross over. We have 1 point where 2 lines at our shoulders cross over. And we have 1 point down in our hips, in our pelvis, where the 2 lines there cross over. And if you could view your body from above your head straight down through the center of your body, what we're aiming for is for those 3 points to be in perfect alignment. And just like with our pendulum, it doesn't matter if they're not. We're aiming to bring them into alignment. So if we could look down through our body from the very top of our head, those 3 pairs of lines would completely line up. You'd see 3 crosses through the body. So that will be, like the pendulum, something else to come back to try to play around with. These things are all just tools for different ways we can, visualize connecting with those energy lines that run through the center of our body to help them come into better balance. And they really are, I mean, the pendulum and those connecting the 3 points, see which works best for you. Try them both. See how they help you feel. And again, just to remind you, check in with yourself before and afterwards when you try these things. And don't be afraid to try them a few times, because sometimes just once you can be a bit in your head. Well, what did she say? Where am I supposed to put the lines? And how am I doing this? But we give them a try a couple of times before you see, okay, which helps me the most. And like Tiffany described the pendulum, finding those 3 points is often something I might use at the beginning of a meditation. So it can also be a really good way to start to move out of our mind a little bit into our bodies a bit more and feel a bit more balanced on an energetic level before you try to do something like meditation, which is easier if our mind is a little bit quieter. Yeah, all these things that are useful to and the other technique we wanted to just mention here, which again, I'm for the sake of really giving this its full value, I think, I'm just going to mention it here. So one of the things that can push us out of balance energetically is the aura, the energy field that surrounds us. which we've mentioned a number of times, can kind of collect debris, both from inside ourselves. So if we have an emotional reaction, particularly if we aren't able to process it or something like that, or if we're feeling pain in our body, all sorts of things can put stuff into our aura. Or just, the energy of our environment can also get caught up in our aura, exactly the same as happens to our physical body. We walk through the world and stuff, gets into our body. And again, just like we do with our physical body, we, need to ideally regularly find ways to keep it clean. And, many of us do that by taking a shower or a bath. So, one really very simple, practical way to cleanse the energy of your aura is to use something called sage, and that is just the herb that you can also use in cooking. You can find it in many shops and things, and it comes in a bundle. Just to acknowledge this, it comes from the Native American Indian, the indigenous population of America tradition, and smoke is very much used to cleanse the energy of spaces. But you can also light this bundle of dried herbs, and the smoke that it emits, you can kind of just waft it around your body, and that can be one way to give your aura a bit of a freshen up and help you to feel a bit more balanced. And there's also a kind of meditation visualization technique that you can use to cleanse your aura. But I think to give that more time, that's something that probably we best go into on another occasion. I mean, we mentioned some of the physical things, and again, I think it's really important to reiterate that anything you do on any level for your mind, for your body, for your energy system, emotionally, anything you do for any one of those parts will help you to feel a little bit more balanced in any of the other parts. So they are all very much interconnected, and do any one of those things you do. So just trying something, I think, is really important.
Yes, very much so. It's not getting to the goal that is success. It's the experience of trying brings you back into balance. I have this image in my head of kind of taking a jumble of things and very gently pulling it straight. And it's the pulling it straight that brings it all together and puts it into balance, not getting to a certain place. And so thank you for doing this with us. This is a lot of information. It's a lot of density. Very much want to hear how you guys are going along with it and sharing anything that comes up with you. And thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. I really hope it's been helpful, and we will see you next time.
Hi, I'm Carol Smith, the producer of the Life Made Easier podcast. We hope today's episode gave you some meaningful tools and takeaways to help make your life feel a little lighter. You've reached the end of this episode, but not the end of the ways that you can support us. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, follow us on social media, and check out our Patreon for extra content and ways you can go deeper with us. There's also a whole library of episodes waiting for you to help increase your energy intelligence. Take care, and we'll see you on the next Life Made Easier.